Good afternoon, all. Today we have the immense pleasure of having Dr. Sudipta Paul, Scientist, Division of Extension Education, ICR Agriculture Research Institute, New Delhi, with us. So we are honored to have you with us. And the topic chosen for deliberation by our esteemed guest is Extension Services Delivery in Northeastern Hill Region, Approaches, Challenges, and Institutional Innovations. But you're audible as well as visible. And your screen is also visible. Please start, sir. Dr.
Okay,
Sudip,
thank you very much.
yes, sir. You can move to the PPT, or if you want to interact with the participants, you can do that.
So, is the first slide visible?
Yes, yes,
Our
sir. Yes,
slide?
yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Uh, Thank you very much. So, thanks for giving me this opportunity to interact with wide range of participants. As I heard that they are from different systems across the country. They are participating in this very important training program. So, today we'll discuss on extension service delivery in Northeastern Hill region. What are the challenges and approaches? So, as already Mr. Majid has introduced me, still I'd like to say a little more about me before going deep into the presentation. So, I'm Sudipta Pal, and I've done my PhD from IRI New Delhi in agricultural extension. And then I joined the ARA service of the ICAR back in 2011. And my first place of posting was Northeastern region of India. And to be precise, the name of the institute was ICAR, Agricultural Technology Application Research Institute, Atari. That time it was zone 3, nowadays it is zone 7, I guess. In fact, the entire zone has been bifurcated into two different zones. One is coming and the other is coming under Guwahati of Assam. So that is why I had great pleasure of working under the pleasant environment and a fascinating conditions of the northeastern region. So I had a lot of learning opportunities there. I worked there for 5 years before moving to IRI New Delhi in the division of agricultural extension. So Northeast is one of the most linguistically as well as ethnically diverse regions in the country as well as in the world. And some places are there in the Northeast where from village to village even the language change. The Northeast basically comprises four basic physiographic regions. One is the Brahmaputra Valley, of course. Another is the Barak Valley. The other is called the Patkai, and the last one is the Eastern Himalayas. So we'll discuss in details what are the challenges and what are the approaches those need to be followed in the northeastern region for effective extension service delivery.
बस दुकानें निकलवा दी तो भाई
Okay, uh, so let us give you a brief acquaintance with the northeastern region with the basic statistics about the region. So, seven sister states, and the eighth one is the Sikkim. So a total of 118 districts are there, and the entire region occupies around 8% area of the country. And the total share of the population, although is lesser, only 4.5 out of these 137 crore people reside there, which comprises 3.78, around 4% of the country's total population. So the region shares international borders with five countries: Nepal, Bhutan, China, and Myanmar and Bangladesh. And the highest border is shared with the country Bangladesh. Mainly parts of Meghalaya, Tripura, and Assam are shared with Bangladesh. That is why some influence of Bangladesh is also there in the bordering districts of the region. Those who have worked in the northeastern region, particularly in those areas, they might have understood or they will be understanding the border area influences. So as I told that 2/3 of the area is hilly. It is interspersed with the valleys and some plains. So the hill region and the valley and plain region are quite different, both in terms of physiography as well as in terms of demographic characteristics of the population, and a huge difference is noticed in terms of the climatic conditions. So these things are very important as far as extension service delivery is concerned. The altitude of the region is around 7,000 meters from the mean sea level, and yes, 65% of the area is covered under different kinds of forests. Those are dense forests and open forests, even bamboo plantations. So different kinds of forests are there, and 65% of the area is covered under those forests. So it's a tribal dominated belt of the country, and in some states you can find like Mizoram and then Meghalaya and Nagaland. These three states you'll find tribal population more than 85%. In the other states also tribal population is there, but that is not to that extent. So the lowest tribal population is noticed in the state of Assam and the highest in the state of Mizoram. Total of around 2.5 crores of tribal people out of 4.5 crores are there. And yeah, one thing that is very much important and noticeable about the region is its population density. The population density is very low. Uh, in some districts of Arunachal, you'll find as low as only 17 people per per square kilometer area, and highest population density, of course, is noticed in some districts of Assam, that around 175 persons per square kilometer, and the literacy rate of the region is quite striking. Although the region is considered as one of the backward enclaves of our progressive economy, and this region is thoroughly endorsed with literate people, that I must say. In Mizoram, you can find over 95% of populations were literate. Even in the rural areas, also find people talking fluently in English. That is huge thing to notice in the northeastern region. In Tripura also the literacy rate is quite high, and the literacy rate overall in the region is far above from the percent. And the sex ratio is also quite high compared to the national average. It's around 959, and the highest sex ratio is observed in the state of Manipur. It's 992. So this region, as I told, is thoroughly endorsed with different kinds of flora and fauna, and that is why it is characterized by wide and very rich biodiversity. In fact, in the world, 12 biodiversity hotspots are there, and out of those 12 biodiversity hotspots, northeastern region of India is one, right? So characterized by very heavy precipitation. The average rainfall in the region is very high. In fact, Cherrapunji is one region. Cherrapunji is one area which is located in Meghalaya that receives. Can you imagine? It receives an annually, on an average, 11,465 millimeter of rainfall. So you can understand how much high intensity precipitation is there in the entire region, and it's home to wild relatives of different cultivated crops, like out of 355 means wild relatives of different cultivated crops which are reported in the entire country, 132 are found in the region. So it is very rich in biodiversity. no region and no part in the northeast you'll be witnessing an average annual rainfall which is below 1000 millimeter. It becomes very important for designing the farming system and overall cropping modules and overall extension strategy in the region, because the climate is harsh and the as I told that though in the valleys some pleasant climate is there, but in some parts of Arunachal, which is very high altitude regions, some districts like Tawang, their sub-zero temperature is very common there in parts of Sikkim, Arunachal mainly, and frost incidences, the hailstorms, these are also very common. Coming to the key industries in the region, well, apart from agriculture contributes the highest naturally, but apart from agriculture you'll find food processing, horticulture, and tourism industry is on a boom in the region. Earlier you people used to fear the region, but nowadays the tourism industry is booming, and from various parts of the country as well as from the world you'll find people visiting several parts of the northeast. Earlier it was not that densely a tourist location or tourist target, you can say. Sericulture is there. In fact, 99% of the eri muga and is found in Assam. 99% of the eri muga produced, eri and muga silk produced in the country, they are produced in Assam. And tea plantation is very common there. Tea is, Assam is very famous for tea. In fact, yes, in some parts of Meghalaya also, tea plantations are there. Apart from the handicrafts are there, and bamboo products are there. You must be knowing that around one third of the total bamboo production in India is from northeast, and in Mizoram you'll find a lot of means bamboo plantations, and in Tripura, though rubber doesn't come under the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, still rubber takes a very prominent chunk in the economy, as I say. And rubber is actually, Tripura is considered as the second rubber capital in the country after Kerala. So this region hosts more than 160 domesticated species of different cultivated crops. And apart from farming, the tribes are dependent on different forest products, mainly mushroom and then honey also. So apiculture, mushroom production, animal husbandry. Okay, in spite of the fact that the northeastern region is highly endowed with different kinds of natural resources, uh, it is not that food secured, at least as indicated by data which are available with us. The entire region comes under the South Asian rice domain, as we say, and the livelihood is mainly rice farming based. Livelihood of the farmers are mainly rice farming based. Though animal husbandry also supplements and complements the farmers' livelihoods, still the region lags behind as far as average yield of different crops are concerned. For example, average rice yield in the region is quite low, it's lower than the national average. Wheat yield is almost half compared to the national average. Pulses yield half compared to the national average, and maize yield is also very low compared to the national average. So these are the major crops grown, but still their yield suffers a lot. Maybe it is due to lower consumption of external inputs, because the northeastern farmers are very much apathetic to the use of external and synthetic fertilizers, chemical fertilizers. So as indicated by data that maybe around 0.38 lakh tons of fertilizer, NPK fertilizers are consumed the national average of 1.2. That means around only 1/3 of the national consumption is there in the region. And you must be knowing that the entire northeastern region except for Assam is undeclared organic, and Sikkim has declared itself as an organic state. That means that no chemical fertilizers or chemical inputs, chemical pesticides can be used in the state of Sikkim. In other states it can be used, but the farmers are normally apathetic. So, well, if you don't use external inputs, so it is bound to happen that the productivity of crops will be on the lower side, and that is why the region suffers from major production deficits. So this is the data that I have try to plot, and you can see that the states like Meghalaya, that state like Mizoram, so they fall short of production. That means they cannot produce to the extent they require for feeding the entire population in the state. So they are food deficit states in both in terms of overall production of food grains, rice, and pulses. So in Arunachal also pulse production is deficit. Assam also all the production deficit are there. In Manipur pulse is deficit. Meghalaya, Mizoram all the food grain, rice, pulse are deficit. Ek- Nagaland also to some extent pulse is deficit. So the entire region is in the deficit side, as you can see, right? So these are serious concerns that the extension workers and the extension system overall should address in the coming days, because this is a grim situation, particularly in the post-COVID scenario. Maybe it is going to simply aggravate when the transportation, agricultural transportation is interrupted, and the states need to depend on the other states for produce for supplying food grains and the staple foods to its population. So in this specific scenario, I think the extension system overall has a major role to play in terms of educating the farmers about improved production technology, such that yield gaps and in specific and the technology gaps in general with the Atari. That time we had 78 kVA total, and we are just trying to connect to the farmers by means of external funds. This gives rise to challenges to the extension service delivery. I'll not talk about the general challenges which are observed in the region. Rather, I'd like to talk about the challenges from extension perspectives. And the first challenge that we observed is the problem of increased fragmentation of landholding income. But you must be very surprised to know that over 300% of population rise has been observed in the region since 1951. Undulating topography is there. 65% of the area is covered by forest, so you cannot do any cultivation. Available arable land is only 25% of the total geographical area. And given that rapid rise in population, it is bound to happen that land fragmentation will cause and take over very early. And that has happened in fact. So the data also suggests the same thing. So this is to 2010-11 agricultural census data directly taken from the Ministry of Agriculture Farmers Welfare website. And you can see that the small and this is marginal. So the first one is not small, this is marginal, and the second one is small. So the contribution of the small and marginal farmers altogether in the region is more than 80%, and it just goes parallel with the country. In the country, the contribution of small and marginal farmers to the total farming population is around 84%. In Northeast, one might expect that there are large hills, that their population is density is not that high. So maybe the farmers are them, but my dear friends, it is not the case. The case is rather reverse. So small and marginal farmers are more in the region, and the lands are getting far more fragmented nowadays due to the shrinking landman ratio, which is resultant from the rapid rise in population. Even we had a data that over 80% of the farmers in Meghalaya thrive only on an average half acre of land. So you might think that only in half acre of land with a family size of 8 or 9, how can a farm family thrive and sustain entire northeastern region? Because when the land is getting fragmented day by day, land is inevitable, and without a proper knowledge of crop rotation, which is very common in across the states and districts of the region, they don't have proper knowledge about the crop rotation. So it is evident that the soil fertility will be downgrading, and overall it will create long-term damages. The next problem is, of course, which is challenged by the extension system as a whole, is predominance of traditional production technology. Yes, the region is not that mechanized, so the plateau, the undulating hills actually does not allow or permit only a little to go for mechanization. So in the valleys and in some parts of some, it's possible to do farming operations with combined harvester, then tractors, power tillers. But in the hills, the undulating topography, mechanization is very problematic. And as the connectivity is also not good that much, that is why you will find transportation problems. Even manual plowing and manually sowing, harvesting, all these things are very common sight across, carrying their farm produce in bamboo baskets, coming by walk 5 kilometers, 7 kilometers, 10 kilometers to the nearest markets, selling their products. So these are very common sights actually there, which the hilly terrain and the fragmented landholdings often do not permit. So what we need is mechanization, but the topography does not allow mechanization, and the farmers suffer. So the extension system has a role to play here, to redesigning and coming out with innovative ideas. The third challenge is of course contributed by the harsh climatic conditions. As I've already mentioned that precipitation is very high across the region. No part of the region will, it is a different story though that the precipitation is high, but water scarcity problem is very common across the region, because water across the slopes, if not harvested properly, so it will simply run off to the rivers or lowest parts. So although precipitation is very high, the farmers may not get the benefit of water, right? And due to these harsh climatic conditions, often extension service delivery becomes very, very challenging. Frost problem is there, hailstorm is there, and chilly climate is prevailing in the months of it starts from the months of October and continues up to April. So the climate is on the chilly side. So the climate is a major challenge, yes, for working there. And it is needless to say that the region agriculturally is not that developed in terms of its infrastructure and market stability. There are not much open markets there. Farmers go with subsistence farming mainly, and marketable surplus is also less, as I've shown, which is evident from data also that food deficit is there. So individual farm level deficits are there. So marketable surplus is not that high, and market open also not that much there. Organized markets are not there. Mandis are very decently placed from one another. So market instability is bound to happen, which is a major challenge. Because if you want to promote newer technologies on experimental basis, you require two assurance you require. One is that you can assure the farmers in the market. Second one is you have to confirm that the cultivated area is covered with insurance. But it is very surprising to notice that even not 1% of the area in the entire region is insured. In India, it is around insured. Crop area is insured, but in Northeast, even not 1% area is insured. So it is also a major challenge for the extension delivery system as a whole, because without proper insurance coverage, you cannot simply go with newer technologies on experimental basis. If crop failure occurs in midst of harsh climatic conditions, then the farmer will simply come under huge, it will be miserable for the farmers. And due to lack of this proper market infrastructure, cold storage facilities, and then processing and value addition facilities, wastage mainly in fruits and vegetables are very common. In India, every are simply wasted due to this lack of food processing units and proper. So you can also imagine that, of course, there is a significant share of the northeastern region in this wastage. So it can be only checked by building proper infrastructure and getting stability in the market prices and conditions. So we did conduct a study on this. We asked the subject matter specialists of 59 KVKs of 8 northeastern states what are the major challenges they observe in the region. So based on the data that we get, we conducted one correspondence analysis and 10 different dimensions of challenges. Some of the challenges are mild, but some of the challenges are very harsh. Like the KVKs in the region, KVKs play the major role, in fact, a pivotal role in extension service delivery in the region, but um, but they are not that equipped well. So they have to work with limited resources, which is very common in many KVKs of the region, and it sometimes produces huge challenge apart from the physiographical then climatic challenges, and this is also a huge challenge for them. Coming to the prominent extension approaches that we have in the region, so there are mainly 5-6 major approaches that are followed in the region. So yeah, so the pivotal role is played by, of course, the KVKs. Apart from KVKs, Atma is there, and then Sameti is there, who also provide RARs there. Some NGOs are there who they provide extension service delivery. The ICR Research Complex for Northeastern region is there, and then the Central Agricultural University is there. So these are the major wings of extension service delivery. But of course, the pivotal role in mainly in the public agricultural extension system is of course played by the Krishi Vigyan Kendras. The extension system service delivery in the region simply are not survive. So, as I told that when I was there in Atari back in 2011 to 2016, we had only one Atari that was located in Umiam. Later, it got bifurcated into two different Ataris. One comes under Umiam and the other comes under Guwahati. So nowadays, the Atari Umiam looks after the 43 KVKs from Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Tripura. And the Atari from Guwahati, they look after the 46 KVKs of Arunachal, Assam and Sikkim. Yeah, so KVK has a well-defined model. Definitely, many of the participants, I guess, are from KVK, so it will be simply a repetition to you that what you do. I'm trying to say what you do. But for the others, KVK has a well-defined mandate, which is called TADA CD, uh, technology application and demonstration, technology application, demonstration and assessment, and capacity development. So this is being actually done by four major activities. One is called on-farm testing of newly released technologies. Other is called the frontline demonstration of potentially potentially very potent technologies, which are the potential of which have been already established through the OFTs. And the KVKs also undertake different both on location on-farm training programs and off-farm training programs they organize, which are of different durations. Apart from that, they supply critical inputs to the farmers in order to provide them some hand-holding supports. And in the northeastern region, it is very much prevalent. Without improved supply, I think the farmers will never going to. They simply don't have the affordability, or they simply cannot afford simply to go for new technologies if you don't supply them with critical inputs which are required. And some extension activities also, maybe more than 30 types of extension activities like Kishan Gosti, Farmer, radio talk, TV talk, different kinds of extension activities actually they organize for the sake and benefit of the farmers. So, this is the administrative. I think this is the administrative building of KVK in some KVK Moon, I think of Nagaland, and so the KVK, the location of the KVKs are in the entire northeast are not that convenient. They are located in a very distant places. They are located such that they can get access to the farmers readily. So the KVKs are mainly funded by the Indian Council of Agricultural Research. They have their own mechanism of different projects, but mainly they are funded for carrying out their mandated activities by the ICAR. And but they are administratively hosted by different line departments like Department of Agriculture, then universities like Central Agricultural University, the Nagaland University, NGOs are also there who also host some KVKs. Yeah, so several approaches are there. Which the KVKs called. I'll here only talk about or restrict my talk with the extension approaches followed by the KVK. So Atma has their own approaches, farm school on air, farmers field school, all these approaches are there. So I'm not getting into details of that, but the some major innovative approaches that I noticed during my stay at Northeast, I just try to share my experiences with you that I like the most, the approaches which the KVKs followed and which I found very innovative. One approach I found is called the commodity village approach. What happens in Northeast, I have already mentioned that the Northeastern region is linguistically and ethnically very diverse, and it has every village has its own importance and own uniqueness. So the traditional farming systems and indigenous technical knowledges are very important in the villages of Northeast. So the KVKs, I found, try to promote some villages as commodity village. Like the village of Molvam, a village is there in Dimapur district of Nagaland. It is called Pineapple Village nowadays, courtesy to the KVK Dimapur, of course. And the advantage is that it becomes very easy for aggregation of the produce, marketing of the produce, and export of the produce. And it is also very simple and easier for the extension service delivery system to disseminate knowledge and critical information. Because the horizontal spread amongst the farmers, it takes very quickly. Village and no, it is not, the commodities are not diversified in the village, and it helps also in better price discovery. But one problem that the KVK often used to receive is that pineapple is such a crop which takes 15 to 18 months to get into flowering. So how can the farmers survive in between these 15 to 18 months? So, and weeding is a problem because pineapple catches lots of weeds, but as they are all undeclared organic states, they do not use weedicides, chemical weedicides. Plastic mulching is not affordable for them. So how can they survive in those 15 to 18 months? So the KVK came out with integrated farming systems. Like they introduced intercropping Assam lemon with pineapple, then introduced intercropping of Khasi mandarin with pineapple, even intercropping of Jhum's rice. That some of the intercropping systems they suggested to the farmers, and nowadays if you village the Molbom in Dimapur, you'll find that I think 100% of the farmers have adapted, and it's a very successful model of KVK Dimapur, I must say. Even our earlier DG, Dr. S. Ayappan, also visited this village, Molbom, during the Pineapple Festival. Another similar example can be cited from the Nonglak tomato village. It's in the West Khasi hills of Meghalaya. The village main city are chalk and cheese difference is there. So in the pre-intervention scenario was quite grim that the villagers were very poor. They do not have livelihood options, sufficient livelihood options. But when the KVK West Khasi hills came into picture and intervened, they tried to intervene in the village, adapted the village, and they all started with simply forming one SHG, which is called the Lalaminti SHG, and gradually it simply took the shape of a revolution, and it came out to be a tomato growers network. It is so widespread nowadays, simply cannot imagine. And the key factor behind the success of these commodity villages identification of the market. There one Khasi leader was there, and simply forgot the name of him, and he undertook all the pain to they will export, aggregate and export to the markets of Assam. So they identified two markets. One is Gorchik Bazaar and the other is Fancy Bazaar, and they started exporting in aggregation the bulk volume of the tomato to these markets. And nowadays this village has become self-sufficient. It is called the tomato village of Meghalaya. So you can also visit this village. You can visit the KVK West Khasi Hills. So this is also successful model, and I found the approach and dedicated interventions of the KVK very interesting and fascinating. It's quite inspiring. Okay, so the next approach I must talk about is the farm innovator approach. So as I've told already that ITK plays a major role in the region. Farmers are quite dispersed location to location. They have their own way of conducting the farming. Farming is seen not as a business but as a way of life. Farmers keep inventing there, and the KVK's job is also to identify the farm innovators. That means KVK West Tripura successfully identified one such innovation, which left a lot of impact not only in the district but across the state. Right? Earlier in the entire district, single row system of tuber cultivation was there. The result was not so good because the tuber size which came out to be very large. So if you now plant the tuber of large size, you'll get only lesser yield. Now one farmer is there, Mr. Raj Mohan Devnath, came out with one solution of paired row system of cultivation of potato, and
ऐसे करके
they the KVK also linked with the State Department for TPS, True Potato. Okay, so True Potato seeds, and this system was so successful. So what the KVK did was they identified the farm innovator. They conducted farm to farmer training programs. Whenever they used to conduct, so they took it as a challenge to multiply TPS in the entire state. And if you now visit the state and the district, you'll find lot of changes. It left lot of impact across the entire state, because this TPS based FIGs, farmer interest groups, and then lot of several groups then came into the picture, and nowadays it has become self-sufficient. So these are some approaches. Some unconventional enterprise approach also is there. So back in 2006, maybe it started when people did not think about whether rabbitry can be adapted as an option. So you may be knowing that the entire Northeast is paradise for non-vegetarian eaters. So the entire Northeast food habit is non-vegetarian based. So like even reptiles, amphibians, some edible insects are also some among the traditional delicacies. So but still the overall meat production in the state of Nagaland was found to be very production deficit was there in terms of meat. So KBFA came out with a solution. So they introduced rabbitry, backyard rabbitry with the farm women, and they arranged all the trainings and whatever critical input supply was required, and the information was required for them. It was not that easy for the KBK, because in Northeast, as I've told, altogether adapting a new technology or new enterprise is not that easy. But KBK Fake did it so successfully that nowadays no village can be seen in the fake districts maybe where rabbitry, backyard rabbitry is not there. So it also earns a lot of benefit from them in terms of monetary returns, and it also satisfies their requirement of food. So yeah, it's a win-win situation that the KVK Fake contributed in the region. Now there are certain traditional farming systems there in the Northeast region. One is called the Jobo system of rainwater harvesting. It can be found in the Chakesang means region of the Fake district, and is also called the Ruja system. So as I've told that although the entire region is endowed with natural resources and there is no scarcity of rainfall, rather precipitation is very high, but it's very challenging for the farmers to go for to find water, right? In fact, the name Umiam suggests where I was posted. So Umiam, the name literally means to cry for water. Means water in Khasi. So to cry for water. So yeah, so lot of rain is there, but no water. So in such a situation, so some traditional water harvesting structure like the Jobo system of slope management is very effective, where the top portion of the hill is left untouched, and the middle segment is only used for transport, trapping the silt and the water. And in the lower part of the hills, there is water harvesting tanks are there, from which concavity lower in the lower concavity it is there. So that is why it becomes very easier to supply water to the paddy fields, which are in the lowest segments of the river terraces. So this is a system that many KVKs took for modernization and promotion, and I also personally feel that such systems should be there across the, because these knowledges are very restricted with a particular community or in a particular district that I have observed. Maybe the Jobo system is very much prevalent with the Chakhesang of Phek district, but it is not. It cannot be found in some in parts of Meghalaya, parts of maybe in you can say Assam, hills of Assam. So it is very important to disseminate knowledge about these traditional farming systems that farmers across the region can harvest water and make use of these traditional farming structures or traditional knowledges. Once the system which is restricted with the Apatanis tribe in the Arunachal Pradesh is paddy cum fish culture. So actually in the Zero region, which is the district headquarter of Lower Subansiri, so there one intermountain basin is there, which is around 25-kilometer radius area is there. So it is a plain area, you can say. In the picture also you can see. So they go for rice cum paddy farming in the field, and in the barns also they go for different kinds of millets, mainly finger millets. So this is one system that the Apatanis follow, and this one, in fact, paddy cum culture has become very common nowadays in northeast in entire northeastern region. But to remind you, it all started with the Apatanis, maybe from since time immemorial. We don't know from which era or at particularly at what time this system started, which is nowadays prevalent across the entire region. Courtesy again to the KVK, because the KVK has promoted this system. Yeah, bamboo drip irrigation is very common. As I've told, that bamboo plantations are there, and the northeastern farmers make use of bamboo in making their own designs, engineering designs, such that bamboo drip irrigation systems can be all. Of course, in not in all the crops, these systems can be implemented or installed. Particularly in the tree-like structures or vine-like structures, it can be done. Not in all the crops it can be done once again, but it's a very good drip irrigation system that fetches water from the higher part of the slope of the hill and supplies water to the lower part through bamboo made structures. And the engineering knowledge is thoroughly available in the northeastern farmers, and I guess the KVK should focus on this, because this low cost structure that can be knowledge can be trapped and disseminated through F2F models, like farmer to farmer training models can be adapted in order to disseminate this knowledge. One system is there with the Angami Nagas, which is called the Pani Kheti. Locally, they call it the Pani Kheti. It's nothing but terrace cultivation. So the slopes are cut in terraces, and rice is mainly wet rice is mainly shown in those terraces, because in the terraces, what happens? In the rainy season, these terraces will be filled with water, and they make a system such that water can act as standing water in the there. So in that standing water, they can grow rice then, and it is very prevalent in. It was started by the Angami Nagas, and it can also be seen different almost in all the across the tribes in the region. Now, one thing that a public agricultural extension system that should thoroughly focus on is fallow maintenance in sifting cultivation. So Northeast is very unique for its sifting cultivation. It's called also zooming or slash and burn system of cultivation, right? And it's being practiced since this time immemorial. In this system, in this system, what happens? The 5-6 steps are there, which is followed. First, the forest area is completely cleaned. The trees are cut. They are then burned, and the ash that is produced, that is incorporated into the soil, and no external. Whatever ash is there, only they use that. So the inherent soil property, which whatever is there, that is only made use of in the entire farming process. And then they go for different types of crops in the Jhumland. It is called the Jhumland. right? So these are all Jungland. You can see this burned area, this cleaned area, this is cultivated area. So the hills look like this. So they are all naked hills now because the forests are all clean. Now it is not a sustainable system provided the fallows are not maintained. Earlier, what used to happen? They used to cut the forests, cultivate, and used to leave the entire area until primary secondary forest generation takes place, and it used to take 20 to 25 years. So if a time of 20 to 25 years is allowed, it is sustainable. Otherwise it may create lot of problem. Nowadays, as the population pressure has increased in the entire region, so they are going for a fallow maintenance of only 3 to 5 years. So you can imagine that within these 3 to 5 years, no forest can regenerate. So that is creating a lot of problem. In fact, FAO has declared this one as the most serious land use problem in the tropical world, not only in the northeast but in the tropical world, because as the forest regeneration is not permitted with a suitable fallow maintenance period, forest area is being removed. So studies have been there, and it has been found that a huge had been removed within a very short period of time. So this is the responsibility of the entire public agricultural extension system in totality to educate the farmers or the ill consequences of these poor the length of fallow maintenance. It is not maintained properly, then it may create a lot of ecological problems in the coming days. So this is one area I think the KBKs and the entire extension system should focus on. Yeah, so in light of my stay there and in light of my observations, suggestions which can be taken care of. One is yes, it can be done in the northeast to convert the entire region from individual subsistence to collective commercial. Individual subsistence is free. Farmer producer organizations there with enabling crops, indigenous and exotic fruits, vegetables, which are having ethno-medicinal properties. Those are there in the region. So based upon these crops, easily successful farmer producer organizations can be created given there is enabling socio-political environment. The second one is states should go for buyback arrangement and distant marketing because the market conditions are not stable there. So the nearest states like West Bengal, Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha. So the farmers themselves, of course, cannot do. And it requires aggregation and the state support so that they can go for contract farming and buyback arrangement and go for distant marketing. So this is the need of the hour if the farmers of the Northeast is to be promoted towards prosperity. Supply chain management is of course nil here, and that is why it is very important that the government arranges for supply chain, proper supply chains, so that the cultivators can be linked to the market in a proper way. If value chain is there, cold chain is there, it will be perfect. Nowadays they are not there. Yes, the extension system requires designated fund for NRM education. इसके पहले भी means before also it happened that they did not become successful because the farmers were not motivated from inside. Shifting cultivation itself is not a problem, but the fallow maintenance, poor fallow maintenance, low length of fallow maintenance is a really problem. So there must be designated funds such that NRM education is there towards fallow maintenance, and then this biological diversity, which is means biodiversity hotspot, this region which has uniqueness for its biodiversity, flora and fauna, forest, so it can all be conserved. Yeah. And we also suggested it when I was there also, different agencies also. I suggested personally, we designed many programs so that these funds can be attracted towards the KVK and KVK and Atma can converge. In linkage, they can undertake programs towards this specific cause. Ultimately, nothing much materialized, and there is a need, though thorough need is there. Okay, so some recent initiatives of ICR has been there, which are mention worthy. One is attracting and retaining youth in agriculture. It is running quite successfully in the Nichi region. Then, in line of tribal sub-plan, there is one program called Samta, Knowledge Systems and Homestead Agriculture Management in Tribal Areas. It is also a new program that has been launched in the tribal areas, and Northeast is of course the beneficiary. And Mera Gaon Mera Gaurav MGMG program is there, and through this program also the farmers are being benefited. Okay, in nutshell, I must conclude by saying that the extension system has very enormous role to play there towards prosperity of the farmers. The extension system has got resources, they can do that. The farmers are apathetic towards modern farming technologies that need to be taken care of. They must be supplied with critical inputs, that is a must. Without supplying critical inputs, no, local farming systems must be taken care of, and they must be taken into confidence in if any program is to get success in the Northeastern region. With that, I thank you very much. Thank you all for present hearing.
Thank you, sir. Now, if there are any questions from the participants regarding the topic, please ask. But can you go through the chat? There might be some questions in the chat itself.
Okay. Yeah, somebody has commented. Bhargav Barua has commented. I don't know from where you have collected data, but Assam is not deficient in rice production. It had achieved self-sufficiency in rice production back in 2011. In fact, the problem now is price access to farmers. Okay, yeah. I took this data from ICAR Research Complex for NEH region, and Dr. Roy. I took this data from Roy et al. I have quoted that data also here. Data source is Roy et al. So this paper you can go through, this research paper, Roy et al. They also carried out this analysis, and then I plotted the data and I found such situation. This is not my data. So the raw data where they have collected from, that I cannot comment on exactly. Maybe from state departments or some other departments. Okay.
There's one more. What is the situation of poultry and goat farming in Northeast?
Yeah, one question is what is the situation of poultry and goat farming in Northeast? So, of course, the entire Northeast is animal husbandry based, and the situation of poultry and goat farming is complementary there. Some of the farmers, of course, they take it as primary enterprise, but normally normally backyard poultry and goat farming is taken as complementary enterprises there, and it is widely spread, and it is an integral part of the farming system in the entire Northeastern region, given their food habit and preferences. Somebody has commented that the ICA initiative REI is successful. Yes, REI is successful in the sense that in Northeast it is successful attracting and retaining youth in agriculture because it promotes the youth and tries to attract the youth towards small scale enterprises mainly, which are farming based, mainly mushroom apiary, are there, and yeah, it is getting success. Although no enumeration has been done so far, no studies have been taken so far in a large scale to say or comment on that, that how much successful is that, what are the factors driving that success. But definitely, apparently, it seems that ARIA is successful. How the farmers from commodity village channelize their marketing network? Yes. Um, yeah, this is all aggregation. Yeah, a commodity village is beautiful structure and concept that helps in aggregate in the process of aggregation actually and transportation. So they aggregate the product and transport it to the from how the farmers from commodity village channelize their marketing network. Okay, so yeah, the marketing network may be sometimes local, sometimes it is distant marketing. So two of the commodity villages I observed as case studies, and I think that in one local marketing channels were used, and in the other distant marketing channels were used. One question is there whether the shifting cultivation is still going on in Northeast, and any strategy for watershed development program. Right, the shifting cultivation is still going on. In fact, the farmers they think that part of this is part of culture. This the socio-cultural process. They give a lot of importance. This way of life. So they think this is a ritual. So shifting cultivation is not less than a festival or ritual to them. So it cannot stop simply. You cannot win away people from shifting cultivation. You have to have alternate strategies, mainly fallow management. This is must. And the second one is modernization of the shifting cultivation if possible. We heard also had studies in on shifting cultivations. One ecological indicator paper is also there. You can go through if you are interested. I can share it with you. Watershed development programs are there. Yeah, watershed development programs are there. In Tripura, it started, and watershed development projects are there in Tripura, and mainly in Tripura and Assam. So not widespread, but these are there. Mainly, Jal Shakti Abhiyan is there nowadays. Atari Umiam is concentrating on Jal Shakti Abhiyan. The Ministry of Jal Shakti is providing some fund, so they are trying to channelize that fund. Is there is gradually it's taking shape. So far, I found only these many questions. If any more question is there, then
Any questions you can directly ask. If there are any questions, please ask. Dr. Prakash, are you there with us?
Yeah, good afternoon, Sudipta sir.
yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yeah. So I'm just going through the whole presentation as well as I was going through the question and answer session also. As such, because we know that actually the similar northeastern conditions prevail in many other states, maybe Himachal or maybe Jammu and Kashmir and northeastern region. In fact, this is a representative type of presentation for the hilly areas, I consider, and it has come up really nicely. But let us take if there are any more questions from the participants still. As such, I do not have any questions for you, but let us wait for 1 or 2 minutes if there are any queries again.
Yeah, sure.
Sir?
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah, Dr. Jairas, sir, please.
Yeah, because the state like in northeast area, because the farming operations are highly dependent on the monsoon, I think so. So is there any study conducted regarding the natural resource management or the extent of soil erosion, how it influenced the productivity? And that may be the reason why the farmers are still depending on the shifting cultivation or the traditional way of farming. So is there any mechanism to gain confidence among the farming community about the natural importance of natural resource management, or whether that type of activities are taking place in those areas? Because I'm actually from Kerala, So Kerala is also having the heavy monsoon and so many landslides and so many casualties and floodings are there. What about the northeastern region with respect to these type of calamities due to monsoon?
Lot many studies are there actually on that. Thank you for the question. It's a very important question. In fact, I always get personally concerned with natural resource management in the region because two concerns are there. One is, of course, the biodiversity overall, at it is a biodiversity hotspot, and the second one is the ecology part. And simple cultivation, as you have rightly pointed out, is taking a toll, and it will in the coming days it will aggravate because there is a rapid rise in population and land fragmentation, and as food deficit is also getting higher, so it will aggravate in the coming days. So people cannot be simply weaned away from the shifting cultivations unless and until we can develop one thorough mechanism through which we can handle this problem. It will be very difficult. So the extension system has already played important roles. They have conducted many training programs on natural resource management. In fact, the ICAR Research Complex of NEH region had their own programs on natural resource management. I have personally visited several NICRA villages. Several NICRA villages I visited and found beautiful structures which have been there. But you know what happens when fund support stops, it does not become sustainable. So it is not self-sustainable so far, given the inherent poverty of the farmers in many parts of the region. So I exactly don't know how to handle that. It may require an overall development, infrastructure development as a whole. Then only some money will be there with the farmers such that they can take care of basic issues, such that they can contribute, means think of the natural resource management part also. But it requires a holistic and linkage based and convergence based development intervention, what I think. Several departments need to converge.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, Majid ji.
Yes, sir. There are no further questions in the chat. If
Yeah,
we have no
that-
further questions, we can proceed to the vote. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Majid ji. I really take this opportunity to thank our resource person, Dr. Sudipta Paul sir, who has previously worked at in the Northeast region, but has been presently working in IRI, but he has a very good experience basically of the Northeast region. And in fact, our idea was even to cover the Northeast region because we have good number of participants from that region here. And I'm sure many of our participants, it's not only the Northeast, but I can consider as an hill agriculture or hilly region. So that was the idea of including this topic. And sir has given really a very nice information, has given very good approaches or models, basically what we can follow in case of a hilly region. And on behalf of all our participants, as well as on behalf of our organizing team and my personal behalf, I really thank him for sharing his valuable experiences and giving his valuable time, basically today being a Sunday. So I thank you all from all of us, and thank you very much, sir. And for the information of our participants, let us all meet again at 11 o'clock in the morning. And we are just left with last 3 more days. Please cooperate and let us all meet at 3 o'clock. Thank you, Sudipta sir, once again, and have a good day, all of you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.